How has 2020 been treating you? Stay out.
I don't have to listen to you. I can do whatever I want. I'm better than you. I'm smarter than you. I know more than you. That's what comes with people will say, oh, they're so confident. Confident doesn't show up like that. You will be discovered. Why? Because truth wants to give you an opportunity to come back to it and say, it's kind of like Scrooge. It's like, this isn't who you are. Living in this adulating posture of me.
The title of mother is one of dignity and honor and respect. Your choices that you're making every day around your children has nothing to do with who you are or your title as a mother.
Hey friends, it's Katie from Without a Crystal Ball. Welcome back to my channel. It's Thursday, September 7th, 2023. Well, we have been on quite an interesting journey discussing the case of Jody Hildebrandt and Ruby Franke, who are facing a lot of problems in Utah. And currently, there's been a new filing in Utah court and some details that I've discovered from some sleuthing online that might give some more insight into what has been going on with Ruby and this whole entire situation. So if you are new to the story, 8 Passengers was a massive YouTube family vlogging page that was documented the family of Ruby and Kevin Franke. Kevin and Ruby Franke, devout and very involved LDS members. Kevin, a professor, former professor, but at the time a professor at BYU, Brigham Young University. Active members in their ward in the LDS, wealthy, attractive, with 6 beautiful children. What not to love? The family was starting, along with some of her sisters, this whole like family vlogging sphere of YouTube, which is completely unregulated, and there are no protections at all whatsoever for kids, and it's incredibly easy for families to start to monetize children, and then they become content for the family members. And over time, Ruby's behavior became subject of concern by people that watched. Media started to notice that certain things that Ruby was saying were questionable, things that the kids were saying were concerning. And within the span of a couple years, from the first time people started noticing and learning to the time that they shut down their channel, was relatively quick. And by December of 2022, Ruby and Kevin failed to renew their company, 8 Passengers Kids, LLC, and their other company, 8 Passengers Productions.
So a lot of you are going, wait a minute, I thought this is 8 Passengers. How come the name changed? So I wanted to get and just make a little update, a little video for you. So I have spent the last 2 years really thinking about what I wanted to do, the direction I wanted to take with my social media. And here's the reality. I have made my content around my children for years, and my children are getting older. Desire to share that. And so it is time for me to switch how I do this and to do it inside of principles. That's something I could do this until I'm 100. As long as I can type on a phone, I can continue making content. I just cannot make content around children.
There's been so many details coming out, and this new court filing, which I'd love to go into. Now, if you're new to the channel and you have not yet subscribed, please make sure to subscribe by clicking on the subscribe button down below. Click on the bell if you have not set your notifications so you know when I upload new content. If you have a comment that you'd like to say, make sure to say it and share this video with your friends. Thank you all for being here, and to all the new subscribers. I covered Ruby Franke back in 2020 when she and her son were on a video talking about Chad having to sleep on a beanbag for 7 months. If that wasn't alarming enough, there were also videos about her discussing the responsibility of 6-year-olds to bring and pack their own lunches to go to school. And obviously, 6-year-olds being 6-year-olds probably don't remember to do those things because that's a very big responsibility for a 6-year-old. And so that 6-year-old frequently went without lunch at school. So there was a lot of alarming things, but unfortunately, investigations time and time again into the family did not produce any evidence of anything. Now, I have some suspicions, and these are just my suspicions, but it seems as though Ruby and her husband being heavily involved in the LDS ward and church, being wealthy, being white, being beautiful, all of those played into a factor of being ignored by authorities and people just assuming that everything was fine. There's also a layer of the protection of the LDS church, and then things started to unpack and unwind because Ruby and her husband got involved with a therapist named Jody Hildebrandt, who they were actually referred to from the church. The layers of the church is you can't ignore. And this therapist, Jody Hildebrandt, through her program Connections Classrooms 101, she previously had a counseling center called Sunrise Counseling, LLC, and that shut down only a few years before she launched Connections. She's had a long list of men that have claimed that she has alienated the wives from the men, accused the men of doing terrible things to their children, and getting wives to divorce their husbands and believe things about their husbands that are simply not true. This pattern seemed to follow exactly what happened to Kevin Franke, and he apparently became shunned and kicked out of the house by Ruby for not repenting of whatever it was that he was doing.
What Connections did for me was it challenged me to put all of that garbage away. Just put it away and turn inward and look at me. Look at what my motives were. Why? Why was I pursuing this? Why was I placing so much value on money? Why was I placing so much value? Why was I placing so much value on my title and my career and where I work? All of that stuff. Why? And I didn't want to face that question. I didn't want to answer why.
So now here we are. Kevin has been estranged from Ruby now for over a year, and Ruby has primarily been the primary custodial parent of the kids. Unfortunately, in the state of Utah, records relating to custody are not public, and so we don't know if there's a formal custody agreement between the two of them, but as of today, there are no divorce filings. So last week, her youngest son, RF, escaped from Jody's home, and he went over to the neighbor's house and asked the neighbor to contact the local PD and get help for him and his sisters. And after that, Ruby shows up like 5 hours later, and she refuses to speak to the authorities about any of this. She refuses to answer questions. Jody makes a very damaging statement while police talk to her, and she says that RF and EF, the two youngest children of Ruby's, should not ever be around other children, which seems to suggest that Jody believed whatever she was doing was justified. That's how I took it, like as though she believed there was some imminent issue that was problematic to these two ever being safe to be around anyone else. And that comment by her could come back and bite her in the butt. So KSL got a copy of the audio to dispatch from the man that RF showed up at the home. And the man basically told the dispatch PD that there had been a lot of problems at this house, that the child wanted help. He was incredibly emotional. His voice cracked multiple times, and he was just urging them to come and help. So it wasn't long after that Jody and Ruby were arrested, and they were initially held on 2 counts, then that was upgraded to 6 counts, and their initial appearance is tomorrow. Now, in St. George Court in Utah. Kevin Franke's lawyer has been sort of on the rounds, And he spoke to KSL, and he told KSL in a statement, phone interview with KSL, which is the local Salt Lake City news outlet. He said, Kevin is a very kind, very soft-spoken guy. He's been a great dad. He's following the guidance of the juvenile court and his counsel and attempting to do the things that are best for the kids in conjunction with the expert that the court is consulting. We're all hoping in a joint effort to get the kids back to normal. They're young. They don't really talk about, and he doesn't really recognize, I don't know, he's just using very guarded language. And neighbors are now telling KSL that Kevin has moved back into the Franke home. The attorney for Kevin pointed out to KSL that he has not been charged in this investigation. And so right now, he is working with the system to try to get back the kids. It sounds like there's a lot of things that he has to do to prove this to them, and I'm not sure what, if any, allowance they're going to give him to have them back at this point. I don't foresee it happening soon, and I don't foresee it happening immediately, especially if his communication with Ruby continues. But it's a very blanket statement from a husband that has been estranged, and neighbors say that Kevin was moved out and Jody became this very prominent fixture in her life. Jody's really unethical and boundaryless relationships with wives is documented through multiple people, multiple lawsuits, a probation investigation where she had her license suspended for 18 months back in 2012. And time after time after time, you see story after story after story of a husband who says, we were referred to Jody by the church for marital counseling for whatever reason. The LDS church is so conservative that basic things that happen in marriage, they deem horrible. And so a husband simply looking at something or maybe doing something to himself is deemed like a horrible, terrible atrocity. And they're sent to only approved counselors that are through the LDS, and Jody happened to be one of them. And she ended up taking in a lot of people from the LDS church and really harming them because she appeared to side with the women, always assign some sort of negative, terrible thing to the man, regardless if it's true, accusing them of all kinds of things they did not do, spreading information about the men, alienating the men from their communities. And this very well could have happened to Kevin. So in some ways, I have a little bit of empathy here for Kevin because he sounds like he could have been one of these men that, again, got alienated alienated by Jody. My empathy is a little bit short, though, because obviously he was so deeply involved in promoting these teachings, and he also was around when they were implementing these different techniques in their homes. So I was watching Mormon Stories podcasts earlier today, and John DeLynn was actually talking about how, he's had a lot of people come through that have actually been treated by Jody, and so many of these people don't want to go on the record because when they were involved in the teachings, they were involved in doing things that were either really embarrassing or they were doing things that they could be deemed illegal in terms of their choices in parenting or in life. And so they are afraid to speak out. They're also afraid of being harassed or retaliated against. And a lot of people are alleging that she has been sort of in many ways kind of running this sort of high control therapy group that has become to brainwash their followers. John DeLynn on Mormon Stories podcast did a great podcast last night with some therapists that explained all the talking points about what's wrong with this program. I would suggest jumping over there to watch it. And I have also provided some of these records to John. I spoke to him briefly. But anyways, this fear of retaliation appears to also be a concern of the prosecutors because they were indicted last week, and the attorney that's prosecuting them in Washington County is seeking a sort of protective order for the discovery because of the sensitivity of this case. and also because of concerns of contact with individuals that have been impacted by Jody and by Ruby, and whether that information could be used to try to interfere in the case, I'll just say. So today in court, there was a filing by Ryan Shum, who is the Deputy Washington County Attorney, and he is seeking a stipulated discovery dissemination order. It's kind of like a protective order. And he is saying that sensitive discovery materials are going to be a part of this case. And as a result of that, he wants to limit what can be viewed and known to both Jody and to Ruby. And one of those things includes the addresses, the telephone numbers, the places of employment, or other locating information of the people that have been hurt by them. This means they are asking the court to not allow Jody and Ruby, who is the mother of these two children, to know any information about the kids. So they're saying they want discovery materials containing the children's private or locating information may not be shared with the defendants. So it says that with the stipulation of the counsel for the parties and to expedite prompt and full discovery of relevant information while limiting dissemination of sensitive information and protecting the children and witnesses from harassment, abuse, or invasion of privacy, they're basically asking that Jody and Ruby be completely banned from knowing the actual location of where the kids are. This is concerning for Kevin, because if Kevin wants access to these kids, Ruby would know where they are. But she, under this discovery, is supposed to not be allowed to know a smidge of anything related to their location. They want to keep the kids as far away from possible from these two. And Kevin wants custody of them. Kevin's back in the marital home. If Kevin gets custody, Ruby's going to know where they are. Jody's going to know where they are. There is a concern here clearly by the court for the safety of these kids, and that they could be effectively tampered with. And when you have that case, it's going to make it difficult for Kevin to prove that he can keep Ruby away from the kids and keep Jody away from the kids. If he knows where they are and he's communicating with her, and I don't know if he is communicating with her, it sounds like they're in the court system, but there's been lots of rumors that they have been communicating. I don't know if that's true or not, but if that is, that's problematic for Kevin getting custody. They also don't want any dissemination of information about any of the videos or audios or interviews with the kids. And so it basically says that dissemination of sensitive discovery information is limited to parties, their counsel, and necessary members of counsel's litigation teams, and that it cannot be disseminated to anywhere else, and paralegals within their teams. They cannot disseminate. There's concern here of invasion of privacy because Jody Hildebrandt, I believe, in my opinion, has a propensity to disseminate information about people in a way that's harmful and can hurt them and can cause damage to their reputations, to their validity, to their believability, and they're very invested here in protecting the kids and anyone that is going to testify against them. They're also concerned about witnesses here. A lot of people have been very reluctant to speak out against Jody, and it's due to the fact that apparently she has this propensity to share confidential information that people tell her about them, and then she uses it against them. She creates stories about them, and she spreads it. She has high-up connections within the church. She has high-up connections within the community. She's extremely wealthy, and so there is concern here that the kids and witnesses could effectively be, their privacy could be invaded as a result of this. So I know there's questions about what happens to the kids. I think from the court's perspective and from everyone else's perspective, their location is none of our concern and none of our business. And frankly, Kevin's attorneys going out there and saying he wants to get custody, it isn't helping the situation at all, because it's not in the best interest of the kids for anyone to really know what the status is of them. And I find his statement to be just a little bit disingenuous here, because it's very easy to say, like, we're going to get these kids back to normal. excuse me, there's no back to normal with what these children have gone through. And it doesn't, it just really diminishes and minimizes the impact of what has happened. You can recover from what has happened to them, but they don't go back to normal. Going back to normal would assume that none of this had ever happened. You don't just get to put a Band-Aid on this and say, okay, I'm all better. I gained weight and everything's healed, so I'm fine now. They are young, but these formative years leave a lasting imprint on our life. How many of us have things from our childhood that we carry with because it was so damaging? This is one of those moments. So they're asking the court to approve this and say, like, don't allow them to know this information, don't allow them to disseminate this information, and if we find out that they have disseminated this information, we will take steps to further limit discovery, because it says counsel may seek orders modifying the limitations on dissemination of sensitive discovery materials or other such orders as may be appropriate. Orders like this are not uncommon when it comes to children's cases, but when it comes to a case like this, with how much public interest is in this, and knowing that these are two social media people that have been using their social media to promote private information about people and use it as a way to market their self-help stuff, and then Jody's history of using confidential information about people and then starting rumors about them, alienating people, really damaging families, it's going to be critically important for this to be ordered by the court. So Ruby Franke is hopefully not going to be having any contact with her kids, not knowing where her kids are, and hopefully Jody will have no idea where this is going. I was actually thinking about how delusional these two are in their belief systems, and I've come to this realization that they have probably in some way justified that this was necessary to happen because of whatever their beliefs were. Like, they probably said these kids were in distortion and so we had to do this. Like, they were so evil, they weren't repenting, we had to do this. They always will use that as a way to lean. So I feel like they're gonna lean on their belief. They're gonna say, this is my faith, this is my belief, this was what was happening, this had to happen. But there's no justification for what has been alleged, and I really don't know how they're gonna get out of this. So I'm be interested to see how the arraignment goes tomorrow, and I will keep you up to date on all of those things. If you have any comments, questions, or concerns, you can always make sure to leave a comment below. If you're someone that has been impacted by either Jody or by Ruby, make sure to contact me. You can send me an email at tips@withoutacrystalball.com. You can check me out on Facebook at facebook.com/withoutacrystalball, on Instagram withoutacrystalball. And I don't do TikTok, although I have a TikTok page. And so you can contact me there if you have information that you would like to share with me. And also make sure to subscribe on your way out. Thanks, everyone. Let me know what your thoughts are. Bye.